Welcome to another episode of Beta Talk. This season is being sponsored by Ultimate Renewables. Please check them out on their website. Today I'm joined by Barry. You've all heard Barry before. He's the one with a Scottish accent. He's from Renewable Heat up in Scotland, and joined by a friend, Matt Rigby Heating Ltd. And today we're going to talk a little bit about training. We're going to talk about Matt's sort of flying now in the heat pump industry. So we're going to be talking about his journey, how he got into it, and Barry was a bit of a part of that. So, Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let everyone know where are you based?
So I'm in Nottingham, but cover the sort of Nottingham, Derby, sort of North Leicester sort of area.
So as I just said, you weren't always in heat pumps. I'm assuming you're a gas engineer to start with, weren't you?
That's right. Yeah, gas engineer. So I started my time really as an apprentice. So left school 16, like most apprentices, and was in the industrial and commercial sort of sector up until the recession, and sort of made the decision to switch to domestic. Got my gas ticket myself a few years after that, and sort of yeah, just gone on from there really.
And then when did you start to sort of think about going into heat pumps?
My heat pump journey started in lockdown. So you'd sort of sat at home, in between looking after the kids and building different things in the garden to keep yourselves entertained. I was looking on Facebook and just Instagram sort of picking up then, and sort of noticed a few things with these heat pumps. A lot of bad press, really. But Valent started offering a few training courses online. Signed up to a couple of them, the webinar things, and yeah, that was it. Got a bit of an interest in it myself, and then it wasn't until I'd met Barry in Austria on one of the Valent meets that we sort of got to
So
chatting.
let's expand on that because Nathan loves a rant about these things.
Oh,
It was one of those free trips because you fitted too many boilers, Nathan. But I wasn't there because I fitted boilers. I was there because I fitted heat pumps. I was
yeah.
like,
I
50
then
gas
caught
engineers
wind.
in this. Sorry, Matt.
I caught wind that Barry was fitting heat pumps, and so I was like a bit intrigued, and so I sort of pulled to the side and says, these heat pumps, they don't work, do they?" And he was like, "No, listen, you come up to Scotland, I'll show you the work." And I was like, "All right, okay, this guy's going to put his money where his mouth is. Let's see if it actually get this true."
I
Well,
just
sort of
wanted cheap
start.
labour. That was all it was. I wasn't really interested.
I did feel cheap that time,
So you
but
actually went up to Barry's
I
and looked
did,
at the
yeah,
install, yeah?
yeah. So I think it was probably about a year later. I'd done a couple more things with Valent. I did a course with Kimbo,
Yeah.
the Northampton Heating Academy, and I wanted to do it firsthand. Barry invited me up very generously, and we did. I spent a week with him. We designed a system. I'd used my house as a sort of like a bit of a project, designing the system for it, doing the heat loss calculation, and then one of his customers was having a heat pump installed, and I helped install that. And when it came to the moment to turn it on, I was like, "Oh man, yeah, okay, maybe these do work." And I think is it once you sort of sift through all the negative press, which I seem to find comes from all the plumbers that still like to fit with lead, you sort of get to grips of how good these things can actually be.
Hmm.
I think there's barriers, Nathan. I think it's all right doing the course and doing the webinars, but it's that sticking point of you don't know what you don't know until you start actually fitting one.
Hmm.
And that's where I think there's a lot of sticking points in that because it's just simple things like, wait a minute, an outdoor sensor, what's happened with this? And all that's really sticky for people. I think
And,
we just need somebody to lean on.
yeah, because
Absolutely.
what you did there for Matt, we call that mentorship. Yeah,
Yeah.
you handheld him along a journey of what it's like to design a system, what it's like to install a system. He was there at the commissioning, and this is actually something I delivered a speech at the Ground Source Heat Pump Association. I've done a podcast episode about that about two episodes back, and I said to you about that we should really be looking at this mentorship system and investing in the good engineers we know about to do that, because at the moment we're just sending people on these these courses funded with the voucher scheme. Bit disappointed in the Heat Pump Association at the moment, if I'm honest. They did a post today saying, celebrating the fact 7,000 people have been on it this year, and no efficacy studies been done. What they have said is 90% of the people that went on that course said they would recommend it. Well, of course they're going to. It's a free course. It's virtually free somewhere, and it's free other places. If they'd paid for it, they probably aren't. It's a bit like if us three went for a steak dinner and it was free, we would probably recommend people to go to that place.
Yeah.
If I'd paid 180 quid for all three of us, and it was rubbish, I'm not recommending it.
You done the course, didn't you, Matt? You done the course. What course was it you done? The BPEC, LCL?
Yeah, so I did the BPEC. Yeah, so I did that with Heat Pump Central. It's a company close to where I live, they're in Derby. And they then offer an umbrella scheme, but also they have a scheme where you can then get your own MCS, which was something that I was quite passionate about doing. I know there's a lot of guys out there who don't fancy it, and you certainly don't fancy it when you see the amount of paperwork that's involved. And I think that was one of the things Barry was sort of very keen on, sort of, give me an insight of going, look, okay, great, you're going to fit these heat pumps, but remember, you're going to have an awful lot of this other work to do. Heat Pump Central take that headache away from me. They do all that, with your DNO and, back and forth with the customer, making you a proposal and everything. And you do the fitting at the end of the day. And so it's the bit that I want to do. And yeah, so I did my BPEC with them, and they've guided me through, held my hand through my first sort of install. And
how did you find the course?
I'll be honest, it was a lot of repetitiveness. There wasn't really much hands-on, and that was the bit I was looking forward to, really. A lot of it was sat in the classroom, repeating slides all day long, and then there was an exam, which a lot of the questions were... I mean, one of the questions that stands out to me was, it was A, B, C, or D, which is the best way to lift things without cutting your hands? And the answer was wear gloves.
Apprentice.
And it was like, I'm sorry, but I've been doing gas for X amount of years. I've been working on building sites for so many years. Am I really answering a question about wearing gloves? And I don't know, it just felt like they were padding it out a little bit. It could have been a lot shorter, but also much, more. There was nothing about low temperature in it for me. It just seemed about, they run best like this, how best to fit this. And it was just a box ticking exercise. And it wasn't until the last day we got hands-on on a unit, and then that was over in an hour. And I was like, well, no, this is what we're doing. We're fitting these. We should be more focused on actually hands-on with these. And I think that's the benefit I got with Barry, was that I was more hands-on. I was actually doing it and seeing the process from one stage to the next, and then coming out of it at the end, turning it on, commissioning it, and walking away with the customer happy. That, for me, I learned more from in the week than I did being sat in a classroom trying to pass an exam.
Yeah, I've been saying this for ages. I think that's the only way we're going to get numbers up on it. The other thing we've got, Nathan, is that most of the businesses that fit heating are micro businesses like Matt's. They've not got the capacity to take time out to do that kind of stuff, nor take the risk with it. They're going to need support from established companies.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to switch over, because it's just, if you're in someone's house and they're saying the boiler's coming to end of life, it's a lot easier just to say, here's another boiler, than go through that headache for the first time. You've really got to be committed to it.
Yeah,
this is what's really frustrating me about. I mean, I really help people like the HPA. I've helped a lot of organisations, etc. And I spent a lot of time putting together that speech. I did an experiment which proved just sending people on these courses isn't working. You've got to think about other things. The Heat Pump Association never even come to me to ask me. To be fair to DESNZ, the Department of Energy Security Net Zero did actually come to me. We've had a meeting, but there's just so many associations, and half the time I think, what are they actually? I mean, the Heat Pump Association sits under, I don't know if you know this, sits under FETA. Do you know that? Did you know that?
What's that?
That's the Federation of Environmental Trade Associations. So there's loads of trade associations that sit under FETA. So there's HEVAC, there's the British Flue or Chimney Manufacturers Association, there's the Ductwork Association, there's the British Refrigeration Association. And then, like, for instance, within HEVAC, there'll be loads of groups. There'll be like the air conditioning group, the air handling group, the air curtain group, the fan coil group, the humidity control group. There's all these groups. And you think to yourself, what are they all doing? Because there's another thing that happened this week. So I don't know if you saw me do the sarcastic post. You had the Liquid Fuel UK go up to Westminster, do their speech about their latest report, which has been written by GemServe. Now, this is what's confused me. GemServe do the writing for the Heat Pump Association, well, and the irony is they're standing in a marquee, posh marquee, under an air-to-air heat pump. And I bet no one in there realised that. And in their report, it talks about these hard-to-treat homes. They're called complex-to-treat homes or something now. And not one mention of air-to-air. Not one mention of how that is a solution. That they're always talking about air to water, which sometimes can be problematic for these houses in real. But air to air, cheap, 500 quid. I can get a 4 kilowatt mini split system. And yet you've got all these groups, air handling, air conditioning group, all these groups that are supposed to be working with someone like GemServe, the authors, and they haven't put that in the report. And you just think to yourself, what is going on? You've got all these echo chambers. You've got you guys out there working really, really, really hard. Matt had to get off his sort of backside, come and sort of think, right, I need to learn how to do this. What can I do? I'm going to go with someone like Barry. You had to sort of get off your backside and help him do that. You guys aren't getting nothing. And trust me, GemServe get money from the government to do stuff. All these consultancies get money from the government to do stuff. You guys aren't getting anything.
Do you think that should be sponsored then? Do you think that there should be some
Of course
sort of...
it should. Yeah, of course it should.
I just wanted cheap labour.
Previous podcasts with you, Nathan, you're quite an advocate on the peer-to-peer learning. I've done the awakening with Heat Geek, and the peer-to-peer learning that is all on social media. And that, I'll be honest, that didn't really work for me.
Yep.
But peer-to-peer learning with Barry has worked. You know, we've obviously got quite a good friendship now where I can just rely on him. There's a chap who was at Heat Pump Central, Jim Kernan. He passed away recently. Really going to miss him in the game. But that for me was better because when you're talking personally on a level, you can bounce off each other and throw different ideas, and you help understand it. Sat in a classroom looking at slides. Myself, I'm not academic and I struggle, the best of times I really concentrate, but having someone who you can just bounce off to learn hands-on as well for me was the best way to learn.
Yeah, it's all those little questions that you don't know, all these little questions you don't know the answer to yet.
When you think about it, though, isn't it common sense? Isn't it common sense that
if
you want to learn something, go and spend some time with someone that knows how to do it. It's common sense. But no, the government and the Heat Pump Association think let's just go and sit thousands of people on seats for 3 days in front of a PowerPoint, often in front of trainers that have never worked with heat pumps themselves. They've just gone and done that 3-day course, and because they've got an assessor's award, they are now allowed to teach the course. And you've got someone teaching you, because I know for a fact there's engineers been going on these courses, and you've got their trainers telling them, well, they kind of only work in new builds, don't they? And you think to yourself, what on earth is going on?
There's no disrespect for these, assessors and these,
No,
lecturers in these colleges, because they're doing a job that I certainly couldn't do. But you think that if they've got the knowledge of what they can do, why aren't they on site doing this day in, day out?
Well, that's. I mean, people could quite rightly say, "Well, why aren't you out on site, Nathan?" I'm a qualified assessor. I don't bother doing any assessing work anymore. But and I do go and do some stuff. If it's high end stuff with my cousin, I'll go and do it. But it's a good job. The gas assessors are great. Yeah, they're great at what they do. And of course, if they've got a training centre says to them that we're going to start doing the heat pump course, can you go on the heat pump course? Get your 3-day ticket, because then you'll be allowed to teach it. Some gas trainers I know go, oh, I don't want to do that because I don't really know the subject. Whereas others think, yeah, I'll do that, and away they go. But it's what is really frustrating me is the Heat Pump Association and the government are not doing proper efficacy studies. They're not studying actually what needs to be studied. Did this have an impact on someone's learning? Did they come away feeling competent they could put a heat pump in? Not just asking them, would you recommend the course to someone? Of course, you get it's free. Most people do a course.
How would you measure that? How would you measure that, though?
Well, you test their competence. You could do it over time. So you could take a sample of engineers, let's say 100 engineers from different demographics around the country. You could test them, let's say, after 3 weeks of doing that course, after 6 weeks of doing that course, and after 3 months to see what they know. Okay, so you can devise them a question to see what their knowledge comprehension is. Also, you want to know what they're actually doing. You're tracking their progression. Are they going on to install heat pumps? And I don't think any of that is going on at all. I think there's only one training centre that does that, and that's HPIN, CB Heating. They're sort of nurturing people, and even my sponsor, Renewable, Ultimate Renewables. I think obviously once they've done their training and that, and people will go on and do, they're finding out what people are doing. And probably the same as Matt, who you were with when you did your umbrella. But
It's almost like there's a gap between you do the course and the, because I've found that most of my learning now comes from the certification body when they come and do my audit. Most of my arguments come from the audit. But this is where I'm learning about things that I'm maybe not doing as well. But it's almost like I'm honing my business on the audit because I'm learning from the auditor who's saying, really, this is what we should be doing. You should be doing this better and this better. But there's a gap between doing the first install and the audit. So it's like almost you have to fill that gap in so that it's continuously assessed and continue learning from the first training course, first heat pump to your 100th heat pump. You're always getting checked up on and looked at.
what are you learning technical stuff?
Not so much technical. I think it's always the paperwork and always that. we're just talking to Gamo. I failed my last audit because I put defrost valves on my fucking bailent. but I argued with him to blue in the face until he went like that. It's in the warranty. You have to do it. It's like, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I would, if I had not picked that up properly, then that might have been a problem for me down the line somewhere that they turned around and said, "We're not warranting that heat pump because you've not got it on." So there's the kind of little things that I'd missed.
Mm-hmm. Matt, go and get a bit positive. What sort of heat pumps you've been installing?
Valent, currently. So because I've been doing Valent boilers for the last 8 years, sort of seen like a natural sort of progression. I know the sort of system. I know the guys who work there, and also they've got a great customer service. So for me, as a backup, it was a natural sort of progression. But I've started quoting out for a couple of Samsungs as well now, and done a couple of them already. And like I say, simple system, nice and simple. Big company as well, so they're trying to get things right. It's for me. I think majority of it is, are the customers going to be well supported? Am I going to be well supported? And that's why I've sort of stuck with who I have.
Absolutely, you get failed on that. You get measured on the failures, not the successes. When things go wrong, that's when you really get measured as business. So if something goes wrong with a heat pump, how quickly can you get it back up? How can you get support, parts, stuff like that? That's where you get measured.
Absolutely.
Because the good ones you don't hear about. The good ones just work, and you don't hear from them again until it's to get serviced.
Well, all mine must be good because I've not heard from them yet. So unless they haven't turned them on.
Yeah, it's been a mild winter.
What about you getting interest from customers, Matt? Enough interest to sort of
So
the business has changed, Matt, since I started talking to you.
Yeah, so even like yesterday, went out to quote for customer rang me saying they're after a new boiler. I went out yesterday and I'd said, "Oh, have you considered a heat pump?" And she went, "Well, actually, we have been thinking about it, but we're not sure whether our property is suitable." And I says, "Well, let's find out. Let's do the math and we'll find out. I'll sell you a heat pump all day long." And so it's for me, the tide is turning. So I used to do bathrooms and I completely got rid of bathrooms because I found I have not got the time for bathrooms and heat pumps. Now I'm looking at going, well, do I get rid of boiler installs? Because I'm going to be so busy with heat pumps in this coming year. So it's now the tides are really turning.
That's good to hear.
That's brilliant. That's excellent. Yeah.
But I suppose it's one of the things is because I suppose you do feel a bit competent now. You got like a bit of backup with Barry in case. But you seem like you're flying out. I mean, I was speaking to one of the cert body CBs, so they're the people like your Nappets, Oftex, APHC, Nice, and there's quite a few of them now that are that you all have to be a member of if you're MCS accredited. But I was speaking to one of them. I won't know who it is, but they're seeing a lot of their members drop. So they get into heat pumps for about a year. They get their MCS, get into it for about and then they're struggling, and then they're just dropping off and get.
I can understand that. I can understand the struggling side of things. People say, "Oh, why do you get into heat pumps?" And I go, because my life wasn't stressful enough. It's hard. It's hard, but I think the main thing is like is a more of a reward of it with doing heat pumps because when you get it right and it works brilliantly and the customer's happy, it's great. Whereas I would say with boilers, you could fit any old size boiler in any property, it would just work, wouldn't it? You know, because it just kicks out such a tremendous amount of heat, uses a hell of a lot of energy. But with heat pumps, it's more precise, and I think there's more of a reward from that. I've got mates around the local area and they'll fit boilers all day long and it's like a wild west out there with boilers. You know, it's a race to the bottom. You're fighting all day long over who can fit the cheapest boiler in the quickest time. And I don't, personally, I don't want to be a part of that. I want to do a job that's right. And my customer at the end of the day is not going to call me every 20 minutes saying it's not working. And I just see them every year on the anniversary of its service.
You need less customers as well, because how many boilers we need to get the same sort of turnover and profit as a heat pump? You're in a job for a week doing a heat pump. You might have to be in four or five houses to get the same work.
But
There's a lot less stressful, a lot less driving, mucking about.
Let's talk about profit, Barry, because a lot of people speak with me and they say, "Look, why are heat pumps so expensive?" And you know what I'm like. The first thing I say, well, they're not. Air to air stuff that's been around for donkeys years, not. But yes, air to water stuff. If you're going to have an installation air to water, it is going to be expensive for most homeowners. Why is it? Now, obviously, I try and explain it's not the cost of the equipment all the time. Well, not the cost of the actual heat pump outside. It's a lot of other stuff. So just give our listeners a little bit of an idea of what that other stuff is.
Yeah, it's because I've got a wanky car I've got to pay for.
It's ridiculous.
It's because it's a new heating system. I keep saying this. It's a brand new heating system for the second time in someone's house.
Yeah, but don't say that. Don't say that quite like that, because then people think, "Oh, I've got to change all my radiators. I've got to change all my work."
Not always, not always. The problem is that we're moving the heat source to outside, and in doing so, we have to think about pipes out there. We have to think about power. We have to think about all the things that are changing in the house. You're right. We don't actually change. We're not changing pipe work that often. We're changing radiators. We're changing usually older ones that could be 30, 40 years old anyway. It's not a huge. It's only in real disruptive ones we're doing it. It's everything else that goes with it. But this is a one-off cost. We're not getting that across to people. It's a one-off cost because the next time the heat pump goes, realistically, we're probably just changing the box outside. And then we'll probably start getting into the realms of boiler change prices rather than heat pump install prices.
And of course, you've got things like some people are having cylinders, aren't they?
Yeah, you're converting hot water systems as well. We're still going out taking out gravity systems still. So it's gravity changeovers. There's so much to think about.
With a new boiler install, realistically, if you do a boiler install really good, you know, and you flush the system and you have protection and you fit good boiler and everything's working fine, realistically, that boiler will last 20 odd years. The same could be said for a heat pump, and if not more. You're really looking at the lifespan of the compressor, really, because if that compressor can just sit happily for the next X amount of years, it's no different. Whereas if you fit a boiler really badly, don't flush, aren't bothered about the radiator size, aren't bothered about, you know, how much heat is kicking into that heat exchanger, that boiler isn't going to last that long. So this is where it comes down to, you know, the quality of the install.
Yeah, that's a good point, that, because you're more likely to do a higher quality install with a heat pump, which is actually going to increase the lifespan of the heating system. There's a good argument that.
Yeah.
Because the heat pumps are a bit more sensitive to flow, to water condition, that you are more likely to do a much more detailed job.
Absolutely. And you'll find that those people who have had an heat pump installed are more likely to have that heat pump serviced, have the cylinder checked over, and all these bits that could be picked up on an annual service with a boiler, then the boiler's all of a sudden failed or, you know, it started, you know, leaking combustibles. These are bits that are picked up on a service, and the people who have heat pumps are more than likely to have that because they go, well, I've spent a lot of money on this unit. I want to make sure that it lasts as long as possible.
Yeah.
Whereas someone who fits a Wix boiler that costs them 400 quid is not going to really have that serviced every year, really, are they?
Yeah.
I better check my public liability insurance with all this stuff. We had a lovely episode, didn't we, with oh gosh, who's the guy up in Scotland, Barry, that you put a heat pump? I recommended you to him, Paul. Yeah.
So was that a Steeble?
Yeah, he had a Steeble. Have you guys fitted in more? Because funny enough, I've been talking about the Heat Pump Association. There is another Heat Pump Association. There's the Domestic Heat Pump Association that not many people know about, that was being chaired by John Felgate, who's at Steeble. I don't know. So I don't know. Have you fitted any more Steebles since? Because obviously they're a really sort of traditional brand, aren't they?
Yeah. We've still got a few of them going in because we'll decide on the heat pump depending on the projects. So some of them, Stable have got a good range that have not. When you start going to larger outputs, most of them go double fan and go up the way. So the Stable's got a nice unit. The one that's at Paul's, it's fatter and smaller, but it's shorter. So it sometimes sits better than Gardens. But that Stable's running great. It's running at a COP of 4, and that's like a pre-1919 house. It's running really well. So, I mean, again, that comes down to, it's not so much about the heat pump, it's more about the design and installation.
Yeah. Matt, have you got anything on Open Energy Monitor?
I must admit, this is areas where I'm still sort of trying to catch up and trying to learn how I can progress in my business so that people can monitor. It was a bit embarrassing, but I've only really sort of had a website, last couple of months. I bought my first laptop last year. I'm trying to catch up with technology. I only signed up to Twitter recently, so these are all things that I'm sort of working on. But I've got a young family as well, so I'm in between that, trying to get my head around it. Barry's like, "Come on, you should be doing this. You should be doing this." Like, I'm trying, but I'm in the middle of building a Lego castle.
So Barry, you still sort of provide a mentoring sort of service as such, don't you? You're on the end of the phone to Matt if he wants to ring you up to see how you do all the sort of because there is a sort of the paperwork side of it that's all done on computer now, is it? And all that kind of thing.
Yeah, you want to see them do well, Nathan. You want to see these guys do well. Because it's hard work. It's hard work having a business and being self-employed. It's really hard. And I think that's what's quite different about the industry than I think it's been over the years, that there's quite a lot of people supporting each other and talking to each other.
I was saying this exact same thing to my wife earlier. I said it earlier, with the boiler industry, it's a wild west. With heat pumps, there seems to be this community
Buddhism.
we want to make the best systems that we can, and if we can share our knowledge, we will do freely. I think it's one of the reasons why I enjoy being with it. We obviously got this podcast here. We're talking now. There'll be guys who are listening who'll go, "Oh, actually, I could take something from that, and I'd like to share this information." So I think being in this sort of, I don't know, little group, it's helping us all become better engineers at the end of the day.
Yeah, everyone benefits from it.
Yeah.
What do you think about umbrellas, Nathan? Do you for them? Your sponsor's an umbrella, so you're going to have to say.
Yeah, my sponsor. Very interesting question. So obviously, I remember chatting to your dad at the installer show about this, because obviously we both noticed there's a load of umbrellas.
I thought it was going to rain inside that arena because it was at the umbrellas.
I mean, I've funny enough, I've been chatting about umbrellas last week, and it's information I can't really sort of talk about. Put it this way: there is going to be some problems. I think some entities have got into this thinking, "Oh, this is a good industry. Let's get into it and make lots of money, and we can be an umbrella scheme." And someone does all the MCS, and we'll just get some engineers to. And
I'm seeing a similarity between. I'm seeing a similarity between umbrella schemes and your mate down the road fitting a gas boiler and saying, "Oh, you're gas safe. Can you just sign it off for me?" And I've always said no, I'm not keen on that, because I don't know what you've done, and this is how quickly before these umbrella schemes have got far too many jobs to go out and assess before they're just signing them off without seeing them, and then something comes back to bite them, and then it all falls apart.
MCS are very clear about that. If you're an umbrella, you own the customer.
Yeah.
So the umbrella should be the one communicating with the customer and just subcontracting out the work to the installer. So I've done this. I've been playing this with a couple of companies in Scotland, Christopher Gas for one, and Ian Clark, who's got Edinburgh Heating Company, where they're like you, Matt, going through the door and someone's thinking, "I've got a boiler, it's got end of life," and they're saying, because that's the gatekeepers to massive deployment, is the micro businesses going through people's door. It'll not be the marketing. It'll be you guys like going saying, have you thought about a heat pump? Because they trust the micro installers, they trust your local installer to give the right advice. Problem is these guys don't have the tools to do it. So we've done it a couple of times where they'll come to me, say, I've got this one, the customer's really keen on it, and I'll say, right. Then I sit with the customer and installer and say, right, I'll be a point of contact. I'll be your main guy who's going to look after it. If there's any problems, it's going to be on me, and it's my MCS. I'll help with the paperwork. He'll install it. I'll sign it off, and that way you kind of give. And that's given those companies a bit of a leg up as well. They're getting access to that work. I think it's fair enough that the umbrellas can charge for the service, because it's not hard for me to do the paperwork because they're doing so much of it. It's hard for the micro business to do it because they don't have the time or they don't know what they're doing. So everyone wins out of it, really. We get a small turn at it. The installer still gets the profit from the job and gets to retain the customer. So I think there's a place for it, but it has to be very well managed.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, I mean, somewhat. I mean, obviously, you were with an umbrella, and obviously, my sponsors an umbrella, and and Heat Geek and HPN, and sort of they have a system where they are going to nurture their installers that are on that system, and then you probably will get other entities that are coming in it just for the jolly and to make a bit of money. But yes, it's an interesting part of the industry because there does seem to be quite a lot. But I should think they're going to be scrutinised quite a lot about their CB, the CB body that's going to be attached to that particular umbrella will be scrutinising them quite a lot, I imagine.
I only do it to people I know and trust because it could really expose you. So maybe the key word there, Nathan, is nurture. That maybe if you're being part of an umbrella, it should be part of a journey. And maybe that's that gap we're talking about between the first 4-day course and your own assessments is the umbrella is the one that keeps you.
You just picked up on something really, really interesting. So one of the problems we do have in this country, if people are, and I get it all the time, I get people saying to me, they don't work. And of course, I've got to go through that whole thing. Well, they do work. My family's been putting them in for 50 years. We put them in churches where famous people sing and stuff like that. But you're right. The people that are trusted by homeowners are engineers that they've had going around their homes to do the boards. So of course, if some boiler engineer turns up and says, look, they don't work, they're only, they're new technology and they only work in new builds, of course they're going to believe that. So what we need to do is try and convince all these gas engineers that they do it. They don't need to go on a course to understand how a heat pump works. What I've always said is they just need to understand how heat works, because let's get it straight. Gas engineers do a very valuable job. They're going around people's homes getting that boiler on. If you've got young kids, like as I have, we all have, and I mean, we can obviously repair our own boilers. But if you've got young kids or you're LD and your heating goes down late at night, you want someone that can come around and look at all, there's hundreds of makes and models who can look at that and think, yeah, I'll get that going. That is an incredible skill that's undervalued. Now, most of these guys and girls don't understand how heat moves, though. And they don't understand that radiators do not always have to have hot water in them. That's just the laws of thermodynamics. And you only need to teach them. I've got a little 8-minute video I do about it. You only need to teach them a little bit to sort of help them understand how heat moves into a home, how it moves out of a home, and why you don't always need hot in your rads. And then when they go around these people's homes and they have a customer talk about heat pumps, they say, "Oh yeah, I learned the other day how they do work." And then you start to get that trust. Because at the moment, most of our gas engineers are actually telling people they don't work, and it's not really their fault. You could argue that our whole industry has let the engineers down by not helping them understand stuff.
Yeah, massive education thing there. Like, even my wife, bless her, she says she doesn't want underfloor heating in the house because it doesn't warm the house up properly. And we go inside a friend's house and but you're comfortable. My mum will stand against a red hot radiator to tell that the heating's on. I'm like, that's not how you tell the heating's on. Are you comfortable? Are you sat here shivering, or are you stood there comfortable? And this is really the battle we've got against with some of the customers. Oh, my heating's not on. And it is. It just doesn't. It's not warm to where you want it to be at 300 degrees.
There's not a fire glowing in the fireplace.
Exactly.
But it's interesting. I mean, I love a fire in the fireplace, and I can't walk past the radiator without putting my bum on it either. I don't think it's just a very natural response for me to do. I've grown up around heating, haven't I? But yeah, I mean, so that's an interesting piece here, because the homeowners have every right to sort of think like that a little bit, don't they? And you've got to try and help them understand. Well, it's kind of a better way to heat your home. It's more comfortable. It's actually more healthier. That's an interesting piece in its own right.
We don't talk about that, do we? We don't talk about the fact that that's the big feedback we get from, because I won't go into someone's house and automatically say you're going to save money with a heat pump. I don't want to get into that that conversation. Because the people that are coming to me about wanting to fit a heat pump, they're motivated differently. But the big thing when you go back year 2 and year 3 is like, oh, the house is really comfortable now. Like, yeah, that's how your house should be. You should be comfortable in your own house.
I don't know whether it's true, but that the analogy I tend to use is like, when, with a house, you've got to treat it almost like when you put a jacket on, you go outside. Immediately, you're not warm straight away until your body has warmed the insulation in the jacket. And then you'll start feeling the benefit of the jacket. And your house is the same. As long as you keep the shell nice and warm at a comfortable temperature, your boiler or heat pump hasn't got to work as hard to keep you warm and comfortable. Whereas if you just let that temperature drop all the time, it's going to be working its arse off every time it wants to get to temperature. So keep your house nice and comfortable is the best way to run it. And I think most of the customers tend to understand that then.
Jacket analogy. I like that, Matt.
Yeah.
You could
I
say
don't know where I got that one from.
No,
Could
I
be
don't
just
know.
chatting shit. That's the beer talking.
I do like an analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a few on there in the podcast over the years.
Do you know what? Joe and Alex talk about this at Warmer about the fact that if we're not capturing heat pump changes, the boiler changes to heat pump now, that's that house locked in for another 15 years. We should really be looking at ways to extend the existing boiler stock as long as we can until they're ready to do a heat pump or that the industry is ready to give them one. Because we're missing opportunities to get heat pumps in.
Would be able to pay though? This is, isn't it?
No, just generally anyone, because you may have a whole wave of heating engineers going to people's houses that are not ready to do heat pumps because they're not comfortable, they're not got the skill set, they've not got anybody to hold their hand. So there's a whole wave of there's millions of boilers going in right now that could have a heat pump. That because the industry's not ready for it, it's not happening.
Well,
so
apparently there's about 14,000 have been trained. I think 7,000 this year, 7,000 last year. They've all been trained. Everyone's celebrating it, but they're not actually out there doing it, are they? But we're funding it. You, me, Matt, all the taxpayers out there, we're funding that voucher scheme.
It's showing interest, though. It's showing that gas engineers are interested because you can't get on that course unless you're a gas engineer. Or not a gas. You have to be a plumber.
Barry, come on. Well, there was a time when I used to be in industry. If there's a free course going, I'm taking it. Because what do? You put it on your website. You put it on your van. I'm now a qualified heat pump engineer. It makes you look good, even if you're just going to keep selling boilers or doing boilers.
But these guys and girls have taken 3 or 4 days out, so there must be some motivation from them to do it.
There's a motivation.
Those guys are perking up.
There's a motivation to go on the course, but we're talking 14,000. That's a lot of people. And I'll tell you now, there's probably less engineers. What I was talking to that CB about, there's more. They said there's more engineers now leaving, especially the smaller guys, because it's hard. And we aren't seeing thousands of people all of a sudden installing heat pumps and joining MCS. That's not happening.
I had a customer say that. A customer make a good point to me that they're going on to in Scotland. You can go into the Energy Saving Trust. They've got the website of all the MCS installers, and they've got reviews for them all, so you can see all the installers, and it also tells you how many heat pumps you've fitted. Yeah. I asked a customer, "Why did you go for me?" And he says, "Well, I looked at the local installers, and there was one guy done hundreds and hundreds, and a guy done 3. Who am I going to go with?" So we might be like a really poor mix of people doing them because customers want somebody that they've done it before. I mean, that'd be another argument to say that we need more of this mentoring to kind of allow the smaller companies to get into it and get some traction behind them.
Well, I speak to an awful lot of engineers, and I speak to the ones that go on these courses. Trust me, I used to teach the water regs and the G3. That's a day course, and for a fact, people leave that course not really knowing much about the water regs, because you're just teaching it to them off PowerPoints. Because my managers don't want me to teach them in any other way. They say, you've got to do it with the PowerPoints, you've got to do it with the BPEC PowerPoints, and they shut your mouth and get on with it. And, they leave not really knowing anything about the water regs. What they have done is passed a multiple choice. And of course they passed a multiple choice. The answers are sitting there right in front of them. It doesn't mean they remembered them. And I proved that in this experiment I did at this speech. And if you're sitting there for 3 days in front of PowerPoints, that does not make you competent to put a heat pump system in, or design. Because like someone said to me on the post recently, if you're an engineer that's been designing systems, you've been designing really, really good boiler systems, you've been weather compensating them and that, yes, you've got a real good chance you're going to understand a lot of this stuff. But if you've just been putting boilers in, swapping them in and out, you don't understand the science of heat. If I said to someone, if your home needs 8 kilowatts when it's -3, what does it need at 9 degrees? If I asked 99% of the people who've just done that BPEC course, what would your home need if it's 9 degrees outside? They think I'm talking Klingon. They won't have a clue. They wouldn't have a clue that what is a joule of heat per second. They wouldn't have a clue. They don't know the basic stuff, and yet they've been on the low temp course. They've been on the BPEC course, and they don't know the simple stuff of science. Um, it gets frustrating because you've got these so many entities now just patting themselves on the back constantly, celebrating stuff, and you think no. And you guys out there struggling. I mean, probably not so much you, but you know as well as I do, Barry. I speak to a lot of engineers. Some of them are really struggling now, and I'm worried about their well-being.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, luckily you two seem quite jolly and enjoying it, which is good.
That's the
Oh
truth.
no, we're alcoholics. That's how we get past it. It's a Tuesday morning and we've got drinking for us.
But isn't it? It is. It's funny when you speak to customers and like they've got a 42 kilowatt boiler and they're asking you to swap it for another 42 kilowatt boiler, and then you quote them for a heat pump and you say, well, you only need 7 kilowatts. So what are all the other kilowatts doing apart from just wasting money? And it's just the look on their face is shocked. Well, I've done the math. I've proved it. It will work. You just got to trust it. And I think that is another thing. It's trust. You go out and you look for an engineer. Most of the time, these guys who are looking for customers who are looking for heat pump engineers, they've gone online, they've done their research, they've looked at the guy's website, they've perhaps gone on Instagram, and they've done their research on YouTube, had a look at what is a good install against a bad install. And for myself, that's why one of the reasons why I got the website was so I could showcase some of this stuff to my customers. I've been going around for a few years now, and so a lot of my customers who I'm fitting heat pumps for have already been my customers with previous boilers, so they know me and trust me. And I think that's another thing.
Yeah.
Do you like doing that part of the job, Matt, the design part?
Yeah, I think that's sort of like
That'll not be everyone either, Nathan.
No.
Some guys just want to be installers and want to sit in a plant room. My engineers, I couldn't imagine them doing heat loss, sitting in an office and doing heat loss. They would probably melt down. So
yeah, I don't.
Maybe that's a bit of a barrier as well. That maybe that's where the umbrella schemes is really cleaning up, because it's taking that element of the job that they don't want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I love a plant room. Don't get me wrong, but I think I love seeing a job from start to finish. Yeah, you know I love a plant room. The amount of photos I keep sending you, going, oh, look at my baby. But no, it is. It's seeing that job from start to finish, and sort of at the end of it, going, right, I know that works because I've done X, Y, Z, and it will work. So yeah, I think it's just the whole project.
You think that's everyone, Nathan? Everyone wants to do designs?
No. So it's never been like that. So if you go back to the 50s, 60s, you would have had your fitters that were quite happy with their 48s winding in 2-inch barrel, and you would have had people in the engineering department designing it all. Very clever, because sometimes back, well, you go back before the 50s, a lot of this was thermosiphon stuff. They didn't have circulation pumps on it. You were talking about big industrial stuff. Boilers down in the basement, and it's circulating around a whole college campus without a circulation pump. Really clever stuff. And yeah, your fitters were clever. They were winding in great lumps of barrel, weren't they? Low carbon.
Do you think the industry has to go that way again? When it's because that's the part of the reason they split the 3005 into two, the design and installation. That maybe that gives more opportunity for micro businesses to farm out that part of the work.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was sort of part of. I mean, when MCS was sponsoring the podcast back in the early days, there was a few of us saying, you need to split the design and fitting, because it is. But you're going to get engineers that love. So, like we just spoke with Damon, haven't we, beforehand? And he loves the whole aspect of it. He'll love the design and the installation, because it becomes his baby, doesn't it? It was his project right from the word go. And I imagine Matt's a bit like that as well.
Yeah.
But then you're going to get people that just want to do, work like your engineers, Barry. They work really, really hard for you. Love doing it. Same as Steve's engineers, same as IMS's engineers. They've got the trust of the people doing the design and the systems, and then they love just going in the home and just cracking on with it.
Yeah, because these are everyone's noticing that we've got problems trying to scale this industry, and this is probably one of the barriers of it.
Mm.
They're not really getting the numbers we hoped we'd get for installations, and there's a lots of sticky points.
Well, that's where your big companies are going to come in. Obviously, you got your British Gases, your Ovo. There's seven of the energy companies now install or involved with installing heat pumps.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
How are they getting on? Do you know?
well, do you know what? I mean, I look at them very closely. I mean, as much as I give British Gas a bit of grief online, they'll be the ones to beat. You got James Law there now, who's doing some fantastic stuff. And if you look at the others, Octopus are doing really well. I mean, they're all doing really well with the funnel. They get the customer or consumer engagement.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've talked about Octopus, the problem where people were dropping off the journey, and then Octopus did listen to me about that, and they did their partnership program. So they all seem to have their cut-off points of what they won't do. British Gas seem to be a bit above that. They seem to be really thinking about design a little bit more than the others, I think.
Yeah.
I've said to British Gas in the past, they could create what's called a blue ocean. Now, blue ocean was a title of a book written by two ladies, I think. But it's where if you're in a very competitive market, which obviously the energy companies are, a red ocean is basically the analogy of sharks all biting each other. A blue ocean is where you're just swimming on your own, no one's affecting you. And what this book was written, it's a great book. It's about you create your own blue ocean so you don't have competitors. And now British Gas potentially could do that because they've got 7,500 engineers walking into properties every day in this country. Now you think of that as an asset, because they could just quickly walk in. Yes, we know they're going to do their safety checks on the board, but all they've got to do is go around, count the radiators, take some photographs of them, get an idea of what the rads are in that property. That starts to go into an AI sort of platform that starts to work out, what's the lowest flow temperature you could potentially do in that type of architecture home. And I've told them all this. I've been a bit critical about their hive because you've got that in 2 million homes, but it's not actually doing what the boiler bloody wants it to do. It's just turning it off. And they are developing their hive for their heat pump, which sounds quite interesting.
They're going to make it a HEMS, aren't they? They're going to make it a home energy management system.
But you have got engineers are getting confused because on the one hand, you've got really good stuff going on in their heat pump world, British Gas, but you've got the market department for Hive going on and on and on about how great this Hive is in 2 million homes. It's saying people, no, it's not. It's actually just turning the boiler on and off. Hold your hands up. Say, look, we got it wrong. It should have been a compensation device. We are changing that. And that would help engineers understand some stuff because at the moment, engineers are getting confused because there's still engineers out there plonking in hives thinking they're the world's next best thing to slice bread when they're not.
Well, the hive not evolved to be something more like the homely.
That's, I think, what's going to be happening with the hive for the heat pump. Yeah.
I really like the homely.
It's going to be an optimizer.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. So that sounds exciting and good on them. Good on them for that. But come on, you still got the other part of the company. It's a big company, Centrica, going on and on and on. They pulled down a post I did because I just sort of made a point about it, and they pulled it down. So not being very transparent. So yeah, just hold your hands up.
This is it. The blue oceans are good. I had a different analogy. I said that if the pie's that big, we could all be eating the same slice and we wouldn't know about it. But blue ocean's the right analogy. There's that British Gas have. Emma Bowen said this. He says there's always been in your local town. There's always been a national player, a regional player, and a local installer, and they've always had work. Why would it be any different in heat pump world? There's going to be work for us all.
Well, the other thing about blue ocean. Out of these 7,500 engineers, all they've got to do is spot your mats. They've got to spot, and they could easily do that. They've obviously got their own internal CPD programs. So what they've got to be doing and looking for is spotting the people like Matt who've got a little bit of a spark and interest in this heat pump thing. Because not everyone is going to. A spark, yeah. a bit of interest. And then they can nurture them because they've got heat pump teams, and then they can sort of nurture the gas engineers and work with that curiosity. But everyone thinks it's about sitting people bums on seats, and of course, but it's not. It's actually working out who's prepared to take ownership of their own learning, who's really interested in learning. That's what you want to be finding out, and you can do that with digital platforms nowadays with a bit of clever social psychology.
Kimbo's is going digital as well. It'll be digital next year. It'll be warmer.
Yeah.
That'll be good. might open up a bit, because Kimbo's, the thing with Kimbo's, it's limited to how many people he can teach at once.
It is, but then I don't think you'll ever be having Kimbo in a classroom and being able to just be face to face with someone. And it goes back to this peer to peer learning, and just. And I've spoken to a few of engineers around me, who are gas engineers, and this is when we've had issues with boilers and stuff. And you can just talk things through face to face, and I don't think you could come anywhere close to that with being something online.
It's going to be
Just that you
hybrid. It's
read
going to
or
be a bit of
watch.
both. It's
Okay.
going to the new Kimbo thing's going to be hybrid. It's going to be a bit of classroom and a bit online, so you can reinforce that learning. So it's not just going to be the PowerPoint
Yeah.
bit. Go away and you have
Okay.
to go do some more stuff in the background. So that seems like it's a continuous learning thing as well,
Okay.
not
No,
just 2 days
that's
in
good.
a course.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had Valent contact me the other day because they've got an apprenticeship scheme and they are looking for some places for their apprentices to go for like just up to like 6 months. So there's a lad who got in touch with me and he could potentially come in with me for 3 days a week. And he'll do on-site learning, do most of his stuff in the classroom and probably in the workshops at Valent. But it'd be really interesting for me as well because this is a guy who is come straight from school and he has gone straight into low temperature. He's not gone and done the stuff that I've done wrong, because that's the thing is I've learned in my industry everything wrong. I work with a guy who, when it was measuring radiators, would either measure the window or he'd just look around the room and go, "Yeah, stick a 1200 in," and there's no science behind it other than the fact that yeah, well, if it sticks, then we'll
You
just
tell me
chuck
that's
it
wrong.
in.
Is that the wrong way to do it?
So yeah, it'd be really interesting for me to sort of, get first-hand knowledge from someone who's doing
Is
this
that Valiant
firsthand.
employed apprentice then? So
Yeah,
is that somebody
yeah.
who's going to be a Valiant
So
service engineer at some point?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Or either whether they're starting an installation team, I doubt they will, but they might do. Um, but yeah, that's something that's really interesting for me. It will
Yeah.
benefit us both because he'll be learning on-site experience, and then teaching me a few things as well.
Yeah,
I don't
Valent.
think
I think they've got 10, so that the new low carbon apprenticeship is about to start. So the students I teach for Leia, your way up at Nestor, I teach them sort of once a fortnight. They're now going to be going on to that because that's now starting up. So they'll be going to college, and obviously they work with Leia already. And then Valent, I think, have got 10, or they're going to sponsor 10 apprentices to go on that. So good on them for that, actually. Yeah, good on them.
Yeah.
See, from
Really
your point of
interesting.
view, Matt, you don't know something until you have to teach it.
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
you have to
this
try
is
and
it.
repeat it for somebody to learn, then that'll make sure you know it properly.
Yeah.
But
I've
you're
already
gonna
had
get,
that conversation with people who have come up to me and said, heat pumps don't work. And I went, well, I went up to Scotland and I saw them work, so I know they work. If they can work there, they can work anywhere.
Well,
So
Barry,
yeah,
he's good at what he does. Uh,
very good. Yeah,
I hate
no, I
bigging him up.
appreciate his time he's given me. Not to give him, not to put him on a pedestal or anything, but yeah, not to make my nose any browner than it already is, but he's helped me out
Do you
massively, and I
mentor other
appreciate
people,
that.
Barry? Do you mentor any other?
Yeah, yeah. I've got a couple. Ian Clark just now. I'm helping out in Edinburgh Heating Company and Castorf Gas, two Edinburgh companies.
Yeah.
So they're probably in direct competition with me because in the same area. But I mean, the tide lifts all boats. The more people talking about heat pumps in Edinburgh, the more is going to go in. And they've got their own customer base. They're not my customer base.
Mm.
And we're struggling to keep up with the amount of inquiries we've got. So I don't think any problem with it. In actual fact, they might give me some capacity in the future. So if you get bigger projects, we can work together. So I don't mind.
Well, thank you both ever so much for coming on onto the show and having a little chat with us. Matt, it was great to meet you again because I met you at the
Installer show last year. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And no doubt that was in the bar.
Yeah, I've come on quite a bit since then as well. So
No, well done. Yeah, great. Well done. Credit to the industry.
appreciate it.
No, so thanks for coming on. I'd like to dedicate this episode to a friend of mine. He passed away. He's an engineer friend of mine. He was 76, but it was before his time. Bless him. And I've been spending a lot of time with the family. So that's probably why I'm coming across as a bit frustrated over the last 2 weeks. But yeah, when your friends go, it's pretty tough. And us engineers, we have to look after each other, don't we, lads? Cheers for lads, and I'll see you later.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.